She won $20 million and thought she'd crush him in court. "You're beneath me, Owen," she sneered, signing divorce papers with a diamond-sharp smile. But Owen had a secret weapon, a prenup she forgot about. What happens next will leave you speechless. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Drop it in the comments. The alarm pierced the pre-dawn silence of Owen Baxter's Pilsen apartment at 5:30 a.m., sharp and unrelenting. He silenced it with a calloused hand, the weight of another Chicago workday settling into his bones. At 34, Owen, a construction foreman, carried the quiet strength of someone who let actions speak louder than words. He slipped out of bed, careful not to wake his wife, Lauren, or their 7-year-old daughter, Mia, whose soft breathing filtered through the thin wall of their modest two-bedroom. In the dim kitchen, Owen poured black coffee into a battered thermos, its dents a map of years on job sites. He laced up steel-toed boots, kissed Mia's forehead as she slept clutching a stuffed rabbit, and brushed his lips against Lauren's temple. She stirred faintly, her silhouette still under the blanket. By 6 a.m., he grabbed his hard hat and stepped into the city's hum, the L train rattling overhead as he headed to a skyscraper project on Wacker Drive. The site buzzed with activity by 7 a.m., cranes swinging steel beams against a graying sky. Owen moved with purpose, checking blueprints and directing his crew through the chaos of drills and shouted orders. His team respected him, not for bravado, but for his habit of staying late to perfect a pour or volunteering for overtime when others grumbled. "Baxter, you're a machine," his capataz, Tony, yelled over the din, tossing him a water bottle. Owen caught it with a nod, wiping sweat from his brow. Tony added, "Lauren called the office again. Something about picking up groceries on your way home." A few workers chuckled, knowing Lauren hadn't worked since Mia was born. Her family's resources, as she called them, kept her comfortable enough to make Owen feel like he was always playing catch-up. By 6 p.m., Owen wove through rush-hour traffic, dust and concrete grit still clinging to his jacket. He wasn't rushing for Lauren's demands, but for Mia, whose gap-toothed grin was his fuel. "Daddy," she squealed, launching into his arms as he stepped through the door, her small frame ignoring his grimy clothes. He swung her up, her laughter erasing the day's grind. Lauren emerged from the kitchen, phone in hand, her attention already drifting to a text. "How was work?" she asked, eyes barely lifting. Owen shrugged, used to her distraction. "Same as always. You?" She waved a hand, muttering about errands, her focus elsewhere. After dinner, while Lauren scrolled through social media, Owen retreated to Mia's room for their nightly ritual. "Read the dragon's story, Daddy," Mia whispered, curling against him. He opened the worn book, his voice steady as he spun tales of brave knights, but a quiet, uneased nod at him. Lauren's world, her country club friends, her family's wealth, felt like a chasm he could never quite cross. Still, Mia's sleepy giggles made it worth it. He tucked her in, unaware that everything was about to shatter. The next morning unfolded like clockwork until Lauren, lingering over coffee in her robe, stopped at a corner store. On impulse, she bought a lottery ticket, 5 numbers scratched out with a penny. Back home, with morning TV droning, she scraped the ticket's silver coating. The first number matched. Then the second. Her pulse quickened. Third, fourth, fifth, all aligned. $20 million. Her scream tore through the apartment, startling neighbors. She clutched the ticket, hands shaking, and called the lottery office, her mother, anyone who'd listen. By noon, the news spread like wildfire. Neighbors knocked with congratulations, bringing cheap wine and homemade cookies. The cramped apartment became a carnival of cheers. Owen got the call at 3 p.m., Lauren's voice breathless and shrill. He left the site early, heart pounding as he navigated traffic. When he arrived, the apartment overflowed with people, neighbors, co-workers, even Tony, who'd shown up with a six-pack. Lauren stood at the center, radiant, holding the ticket like a scepter. Their eyes met, and for a moment, it felt like their struggles, bills, late nights, the grind, might vanish. Owen swept her into his arms, spinning her as the crowd clapped. Mia tugged at his leg, and he hoisted her up, her giggles ringing out. "We're rich, Daddy. Mommy says we can get a castle." The room erupted in laughter. The celebration stretched past midnight, corks popping, stories of what we do with millions flying. For one night, their tiny apartment felt boundless. As the last guest left and Mia slept, Owen sat at the kitchen table, his old laptop glowing. While Lauren dreamed off the high, he scoured articles on taxes, trusts, and college funds for Mia, jotting notes in his precise, blocky handwriting. He wanted this windfall to last, to build a future. He didn't know that in 3 weeks, Lauren would wield that same money like a blade to cut him out of her life. The Chicago dawn broke cold and sharp, but Owen Baxter was already up, his thermos filled with coffee as he headed to the Wacker Drive site. The $20 million lottery win still felt like a dream, but his routine held steady. Kiss Mia, nod to Lauren, and dive into the grind of steel and concrete. At the job site, his crew buzzed with chatter about the win, slapping his back, joking about early retirement. Owen deflected with a half-smile, focusing on blueprints. He wasn't one to coast, not yet. Back home, Lauren's days shifted. She lingered over coffee later each morning, scrolling real estate listings for Gold Coast penthouses and Lake Forest estates. Her usual errands, yoga, lunch with friends, morphed into marathon shopping trips. By the first week, delivery boxes piled up, handbags stamped with designer logos, jewelry that glinted under the apartment's dim lights. Owen noticed the receipts but said nothing, hoping it was just excitement. When he suggested meeting with a financial advisor to plan for Mia's future, Lauren brushed him off. Relax, Owen. Let me enjoy this. Her tone carried an edge he hadn't heard before. By the second week, the distance grew. Lauren spent hours on calls, her voice muffled behind closed doors. If Owen knocked, she'd hang up abruptly, claiming it was just mom or a friend. Her laughter, once warm, turned sharp, like she was rehearsing a new role. She vanished for entire afternoons, citing meetings with advisors or property tours. When Owen asked about her plans, her answers were vague, her eyes avoiding his. It's under control, she'd say, already turning back to her phone. Mia, oblivious, colored at the kitchen table, humming tunes from school. Owen kept working, his calloused hands steadying beams while his mind churned. He spent nights researching trusts and investments, determined to secure the windfall for Mia's education and their stability. One evening, he found Lauren at the table, a glossy brochure for a private school in her hand. Mia deserves better than Pilsen's public schools, she said, not looking up. Owen nodded, but unease settled deeper. The money wasn't just changing their options, it was changing her. The third week brought a fracture. Lauren barely spoke to Owen, her mornings stretching into noon as she prepared for outings she didn't explain. When he asked about the growing stack of bills from boutiques and jewelers, her response cut deep. This is my money, Owen. I want it. I decide. The words landed like a slap, her emphasis on my slicing through 8 years of shared struggle. He stared, searching for the woman who'd celebrated with him just weeks ago. She was gone, replaced by someone who looked through him, not at him. That Thursday, Owen came home at 6:15 p.m., dust clinging to his jacket, expecting Mia's usual tackle hug. The apartment was silent. Mia was at her grandmother's for a sleepover, Lauren's arrangement, unannounced. Lauren sat on the couch, rigid, a manila envelope in her lap. Without a word, she stood and pressed it against his chest. Papers spilled onto the floor. We're done, Owen, she said, voice cold as Lake Michigan in winter. I'm filing for divorce. You don't belong in my world, not anymore. The words hit harder than any punch. Owen's knees buckled, but he caught himself. What did I do? He asked, voice low. Lauren's laugh was brittle. You're not enough. You never were. I'm not staying tied to a construction worker when I've got $20 million. She turned, heels clicking, leaving the papers scattered like debris. See you in court. Owen stood frozen, the apartment's silence roaring in his ears. He sank to the floor, gathering the documents, their legal jargon blurring through his shock. 8 years, late nights, shared dreams, Mia's first steps, reduced to this. He thought of the prenup, signed under her father's icy gaze, tucked away in a drawer. A flicker of hope sparked. He dialed Nate, his high school friend turned lawyer, whose number he hadn't called in years. Nate, it's Owen. I need you. The next morning, Owen met Nate at his Loop office, the city's skyline framing their talk. Nate, lean and sharp in a suit, listened as Owen recounted the win, Lauren's shift, the divorce papers. She says I'm beneath her, Owen said, voice steady but raw. She thinks the money's all hers. Nate leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You signed a prenup, right? Where is it? Owen described the document, buried in a drawer since their wedding. Nate's grin was fierce. Give me that prenup, Owen. We're not out of this yet. Owen Baxter barely slept, the divorce papers await beside his bed. By 5:30 a.m., he was up, the Chicago skyline still dark outside his Pilsen apartment. He skipped coffee, his stomach knotted, and dug through a drawer until he found the manila envelope from 8 years ago. The prenup, inked under Lauren's father's cold scrutiny, felt like a lifeline now. He clutched it, kissed Mia's sleeping forehead, and headed to meet Nate at his loop office before the city fully woke. Nate's desk was stacked with case files, but he cleared space as Owen handed over the prenup. The lawyer's eyes scanned the pages, his pen tapping a rhythm of focus. "This is gold, Owen," Nate said, pointing to a clause. "Anything acquired during the marriage is joint property. That $20 million? It's not just hers." Owen exhaled, a flicker of relief cutting through his dread. "She's got her dad's lawyers," he said. "They'll bury me." Nate leaned back, undeterred. "They're counting on you folding. We won't." The Cook County family court loomed like a fortress, its stone walls echoing with the stakes of broken promises. On the trial morning, Owen arrived early, his one decent suit slightly tight across the shoulders. Mia, clutching his hand, wore a yellow dress, her eyes wide at the crowd. A court officer guided her to a bench with a child advocate, and she waved at Owen, unaware of the storm brewing. Nate, briefcase in hand, gave Owen a firm nod. "Stay calm. We've got this." The courtroom buzzed with reporters and onlookers, the lottery divorce a magnet for headlines. Lauren swept in, her heels clicking with purpose, her father, Grant, trailing like a shadow. Their lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman from a top firm, carried an air of inevitability. Lauren's gaze flicked to Owen, her lips curling into a smirk. As she took her seat, she leaned toward him, voice low but venomous. "You'll walk away with nothing, Owen. You're out of your league." Her words stung, but Owen held steady, his hands clasped tight. Judge Evelyn Carter entered, her presence commanding silence. At 60, she'd seen every flavor of betrayal in her courtroom. She opened the case file, her pen scratching notes as Lauren's lawyer launched into her argument. "The lottery winnings belong solely to Ms. Baxter," the lawyer declared, citing the prenup as a shield. "Mr. Baxter contributed nothing to the ticket's purchase." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some nodding at the logic. Lauren's smirk widened, her fingers drumming triumphantly. Nate stood, his voice calm but cutting. "Your Honor, the prenup is clear. All assets acquired during the marriage are marital property, subject to equal division." He slid a copy of the document across the table, highlighting the clause. "The ticket was bought with joint funds during the marriage. The $20 million belongs to both parties." The room hushed, reporters scribbling furiously. Lauren's confidence faltered, her eyes darting to her father. Grant's jaw tightened, his plan unraveling. Judge Carter peered over her glasses, reviewing the prenup. "The clause is unambiguous," she said, her tone final. "The lottery winnings are marital property. They will be divided equally, $10 million each." A gasp swept the courtroom. Lauren's hand froze mid-drum, her face paling. Reporters exchanged stunned glances, phones already buzzing with updates. Owen sat still, his heart pounding, but his expression unchanged, years of being underestimated steadying him. Lauren shot to her feet, her voice cracking. "This is outrageous. I bought the ticket. It's mine." Her lawyer tried to hush her, but she shook off the restraint. "He's nothing, a nobody. He doesn't deserve a cent." The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. "Ms. Baxter, control yourself or face contempt." Lauren sank back, her defiance crumbling into shock. Grant gripped her arm, his own composure fraying. Then came the custody hearing. Lauren's lawyer argued for shared custody, but Lauren interrupted, her voice shrill. "If he wants the money, he can have Mia too. I'm done with this life." The words hung heavy, a collective flinch rippling through the room. Mia, from the bench, looked confused, her small hands clutching her dress. Judge Carter's pen paused, her eyes narrowing. "Let the record show Ms. Baxter relinquishes primary custody. Mr. Baxter is granted full custody of the minor." Owen's throat tightened as he knelt to meet Mia's gaze. "We're okay, kiddo," he whispered, squeezing her hand. The gavel fell again, sealing the ruling. Lauren stormed out, Grant trailing, their empire of confidence in ruins. Owen held Mia close, the weight of victory bittersweet. The courtroom cleared, but the real fight, building a future for his daughter, was just beginning. Owen Baxter left the Chicago courtroom with Mia's hand in his, the judge's ruling still echoing. $10 million and full custody. The weight of Lauren's betrayal lingered, but Mia's chatter about her school art project grounded him. He drove them back to their Pilsen apartment, the city's skyline a reminder of what he'd build next, not just structures, but a life for his daughter. That night, He tucked Mia in, promising her favorite pancakes for breakfast. Her smile, gap-toothed and trusting, fueled his resolve. The $10 million arrived within days, a wire transfer that felt surreal against his union paycheck. Owen didn't splurge. He met Nate and a financial planner in a quiet loop office, asking pointed questions about trusts, taxes, and long-term growth. His notes, scrawled in precise block letters, mapped a plan: a college fund for Mia, a modest savings buffer, and seed money for a dream he'd buried, starting his own construction firm. By month's end, he registered Baxter Builds, leasing a small office in West Town and buying equipment with calculated care. Lauren, meanwhile, leaned into her $10 million like a lifeline to a new identity. She rented a Gold Coast penthouse, its rent eating chunks of her fortune. Her days filled with shopping sprees on Michigan Avenue, where she dropped thousands on handbags and dinners at rooftop restaurants. Social media captured her at galas, arm in arm with influencers who praised her glamour. She posted about freedom and new beginnings, never mentioning Mia. When Owen texted about visitation, her replies were curt: busy. Next month. Owen threw himself into Baxter Builds. He hired a small crew, loyal workers from his old site, and bid on city contracts. His reputation for precision and grit won him a library renovation project, then a community center. By year's end, his firm was breaking even, a feat that stunned competitors. Mia, now 8, stayed in her Pilsen school, thriving in art class and soccer. Owen coached her team on weekends, cheering loudest when she scored. Their evenings were filled with board games and library trips, her laughter a balm for the ache Lauren left. Lauren's world, however, began to crack. Her friends vanished when the champagne stopped flowing. A financial advisor, slick and charming, pitched risky investments, crypto schemes, startup ventures that promised quick returns. She poured millions in, ignoring red flags. By year 2, her account dwindled to $4 million. She sold the penthouse, moving to a smaller condo, but kept spending, chasing the high of her lottery days. Invitations to elite events dried up, replaced by silence. Her calls to Grant, her father, went unanswered. His real estate empire was faltering under bad deals and lawsuits. Owen's business grew steadily. Baxter Builds landed a contract for a Chicago Park pavilion, earning praise for community focus. He moved Mia to a bigger apartment in Pilsen, still close to her school, with a room for her art supplies. He framed her drawings on the walls, each one a milestone. When Mia asked about her mom, Owen kept it simple. "She's figuring things out, kiddo. We've got each other." He shielded her from Lauren's absence, but the sting lingered. By year 3, Lauren's funds were nearly gone. A failed nightclub investment wiped out $2 million. Creditors hounded her, and her condo faced foreclosure. She reached out to old contacts, but doors stayed shut. One night, scrolling through local news, she saw an article: Baxter Builds wins city contract for affordable housing. Owen's face, calm and focused at a ribbon cutting, stared back. She tossed her phone, the truth sinking in. Her ex-husband, the nobody, was thriving while she unraveled. Grant's company, Harrington Holdings, hit rock bottom. A string of over-leveraged properties triggered a cash crisis. He laid off staff, sold assets, but the math didn't add up. At a tense family dinner, Lauren pushed him to act. "We need help," she said, voice brittle. Grant, his usual swagger gone, nodded. "There's one person who could turn this around." Lauren froze, knowing who he meant. They had no choice but to face the man they dismissed years ago. Owen, now 37, stood at a crossroads. His firm employed dozens, and Mia, flourishing at 10, had just won a school art contest. He was no longer the man scrambling to prove himself. As he reviewed plans for a new project, his assistant buzzed. "2 visitors, Mr. Baxter. They say it's urgent." Owen glanced at the security feed, Lauren and Grant, waiting. He set down his pen, bracing for a past he'd long outgrown. Owen Baxter sat behind his desk in the West Town office of Baxter Builds, blueprints spread before him for a new Chicago school project. At 37, his calloused hands now signed contracts, not just poured concrete. The morning sun cut through the window, glinting off a framed photo of Mia, now 10, holding her latest art prize. His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Baxter, Lauren Baxter, and Grant Harrington are here." Owen's pulse steadied. He'd been expecting this. "Send them in," he said, setting aside his pen. The door opened, and Lauren and Grant entered, their steps hesitant. Lauren's hands fidgeted, clutching a purse that looked well worn. Grant, once imposing, seemed diminished. His shoulders slumped under the weight of his failing empire. They stood across from Owen, the silence thick with the past. Lauren spoke first, her voice low and unsteady. Owen, we need your help. Harrington Holdings is collapsing. A partnership with Baxter Builds could save it. Grant nodded, swallowing hard. I misjudged you. Your firm's reputation, your success, could pull us through. Owen leaned back, his gaze moving between them. He thought of Mia, waiting at home with her sketchbook, her trust in him unwavering. 5 years ago, these two had cast him aside, Lauren with her courtroom venom, Grant with his dismissive sneer. Now, they stood in his office, humbled by their own failures. Lauren's eyes darted to the photo of Mia, and she pressed on. I know I messed up, Owen. With you, with Mia. But this is bigger than us. Dad's company employs hundreds. You could make a difference. The request hung in the air. Owen stood, walking to the window overlooking the city he'd helped shape. Baxter Builds had grown into a respected name, known for community projects, libraries, parks, affordable homes. His success wasn't luck, it was years of late nights, calculated risks, and a promise to give Mia stability. He turned back to them, his voice even. When I had nothing, I showed up. For Mia. For you, Lauren. For your family, Grant. You called me a nobody, said I didn't belong. Now you're here because you need me. Lauren's eyes welled up, but Owen's tone stayed firm. I built this for my daughter's future, not to fix the messes of those who threw us away. Grant opened his mouth, then closed it, his usual bravado gone. Lauren's voice broke. I was wrong, Owen. About everything. Please, give us a chance. The plea was raw, but it stirred no sympathy. Owen thought of Mia's soccer games, her art shows, the life they'd carved out without Lauren's shadow. He crossed to the door, opening it. My focus is Mia and the people who rely on me now. Harrington Holdings isn't my burden. His words were calm, final. Lauren's shoulders sagged, and Grant stared at the floor. Owen didn't slam the door. He closed it quietly, the soft click louder than any shout. He returned to his desk, picking up Mia's photo, a faint smile breaking through. Outside, Lauren and Grant faced a city that no longer bent to their will. Months later, Harrington Holdings folded, its assets liquidated to cover debts. Lauren moved to a small apartment, her lottery millions gone to bad investments, and a lifestyle she couldn't sustain. She reached out to Mia once, a hesitant call, but Mia's polite distance mirrored Owen's resolve. Grant retired in obscurity, his legacy reduced to cautionary tales in business circles. Lauren's social media went silent, her glamour a memory. Owen and Mia thrived. Baxter Builds won a city award for a new community center, and Owen spoke at the ribbon cutting, Mia beaming at his side. Weekends were for her piano recitals and trips to the Art Institute, where her drawings hung in a student exhibit. At 11, Mia was confident, her father's steady presence her anchor. Owen never spoke of Lauren's betrayal, but he taught Mia integrity through his actions, keeping promises, building trust. The $10 million had been a tool, not a crutch. Owen invested it wisely, growing his business and securing Mia's future. He stayed in Pilsen, close to the community that shaped him, mentoring young workers and funding local scholarships. His office walls held blueprints and Mia's art, a testament to what mattered. As he drove Mia to school one morning, she asked, Dad, are we rich? Owen chuckled. We've got enough, kiddo. Rich is having you. She grinned, and he knew he'd won more than any lottery.